Ever find yourself spiraling because of the tiniest thing? Like you made one small mistake and suddenly you're questioning your entire existence. Or maybe somebody forgot to text you back and now you're convinced that they hate you. Hi, I've been there. And that's why emotional intelligence has been such a game changer for me. Once you learn this skill, it's like a superpower for your relationships, your career, and most importantly, your self-confidence. So, quick reality check. What is EQ? EQ is the ability to be able to understand and manage emotions, not only your own, but the emotions of others as well. And it's made up of 4 pillars. There are 4 pillars to EQ: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And research shows EQ is a stronger predictor of success than IQ. 90% of top performers have EQ. Teams with high EQ leaders report 50% lower turnover rates. What does that mean? That means that when people feel understood and valued, they're likely not to quit their jobs and they'll stick around. But the most interesting fact to me is that people with high EQ are 75% less likely to experience chronic stress. That means better emotional regulation, better mental health, and better overall well-being. So this stuff is kind of important. It impacts how you communicate with others, how you handle stress, and how you show up in your everyday life. Basically, having a higher EQ is like an emotional glow up. You don't only feel better about yourself, but it strengthens your relationship with others too. So let's talk about the first pillar. Self-awareness means knowing what you're feeling and why you're feeling it. It sounds easy, but most of us confuse facts with feelings. Like if I feel anxious, then something must be wrong. If I feel angry, you must have done something wrong. But feelings aren't facts. They're little notifications popping up on your phone. Hey, something needs your attention. I'll give you an example. So I live with my fiance, Ben. We've been living together for a while now. And he has a tendency to collect Amazon boxes. He always gets stuff from Amazon. And a couple of years ago, there was just this pile of Amazon boxes everywhere around our apartment, and they were driving me insane. I was feeling super anxious about them, and I just blew up at him one day and I was like, when are you going to clean up these Amazon boxes? I can't deal with this. I can't focus. They're making me anxious, blah, 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 blah. But it wasn't about the boxes. It was deeper than that. I was unhappy at work. I was already super stressed out. I was working really long hours and just questioning, am I doing something that I love? And so the boxes were kind of like the final straw, but I wasn't really upset at him. I was upset because of how stressed I was feeling and how unfulfilled I was feeling at work. So that's self-awareness, catching yourself and saying, oh, that's really what's going on. So how do you build it? There are several ways. One, which really helps me, is expanding your emotional vocabulary. A lot of us are not good at identifying what we're exactly feeling, not even the why behind it. Like that's step 2. First, let's learn how to properly identify our emotions. Don't just use sad, I'm angry. Say, I'm frustrated, I'm feeling demotivated, I'm feeling melancholic. Like expand your emotional vocabulary to really be able to capture and understand what you're feeling. There's so many resources online. You can look up the Gottman emotional wheel, and there's so many emotions in there. It can be a little bit overwhelming, but take the time to really process and understand, what is it instead of just sadness? Is there another word that can better describe what I'm feeling right now? And then once you do that, start taking a mood journal. And that's just journaling every day and figuring out, what was your overall mood for the day? Obviously, we feel several emotions throughout the day. I know my moods can swing a lot, but try to capture your overall mood at the end of the day. So you could say, I was feeling confident. And then Don't only write your emotion, but then write down the indicators. What made you feel confident today? Maybe it was just one thing that happened, or maybe there were several things that happened. You could say, oh, I crushed this presentation that I prepared for this morning. I got a compliment on the outfit I was wearing, and that made me feel confident. So it can be just one indicator, or there could be multiple that capture your overall mood for the day. And when you start journaling this, it should take only a few minutes every day. You can start seeing patterns and indicators for specific emotions that you're feeling. The better we are at labeling our emotions and understanding them, it gives us power and the ability to manage it. So we're not just like running around going like, I don't feel this way, but I don't know why. Yes, you do. There's always a why behind it. So get to the root. Going on to pillar 2, self-management. And before we start this, just a quick reminder that the foundation of EQ is self-awareness. Without self-awareness, that first pillar, you can't really move on to the others, because if you don't understand your own emotions, how are you supposed to manage them? So jumping back into self-management, this is about controlling your impulses and choosing your response. And note, self-management doesn't mean repressing your emotions and stuffing them down. No, it means creating a space between a trigger and your reaction. So you're being more proactive instead of reactive with your emotional responses. Think about the last time you overreacted to something. Maybe you said something kind of rude that you regret, or you fired off a text or an email that afterwards you were like, what the hell was I thinking? Why didn't I stop to think before I sent that off? That's what happens when you don't pause and regulate your emotions. But when you do pause, even if it's just for 5 seconds, you give your brain a chance to respond rather than react. So when you're feeling a very intense emotion, try to breathe through it and process it. I know that sounds like a little woo-woo. It's not woo-woo, but it's really just controlling your breathing. Breathe in counts of 4s. And give yourself a few seconds before you react to something. I think that's why it's also so important to understand your triggers and understand your emotions first, because then you can also understand what are the situations and people that tend to trigger a very strong reaction in you, and what can you do to process that differently. Remember, you can always choose your response. Like, the way you react to something is kind of your responsibility. You're the only one that can control your reactions. There are a lot of things in our life that are essentially out of our control. The things people say, the way people treat us, certain events happening. And the only thing that we can control during those certain events is our reaction to it and how we communicate with others and show up for others during that time. Self-management is part of that. So if you want to go deeper, these are some questions that you can ask yourself. What strategies do I use to calm myself down when I'm feeling overwhelmed? How do I typically react with unexpected changes or certain situations? And how can I improve my response? When I'm faced with a setback, how do I usually respond? And what can I do in order to bounce back faster? Something I tend to ask myself if I feel like I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, so to say, is why am I making this so big? Why am I turning this small problem into something huge and I'm not able to let go of it? That always kind of snaps me back into reality and makes me more conscious of my emotions and why I'm holding on to something and I'm having a hard time letting go. The third pillar is social awareness. This is about tuning into other people's emotions. Let's be real, most of us just listen to reply, but emotional intelligence means listening to understand others. Think about a time you felt really heard by somebody. How did you feel? You probably felt like they got you. You felt seen. You probably felt a sense of connection. That is empathy in action, and empathy is a very important part of social awareness. You have to be able to understand how other people are feeling and also try to put yourself into their situation. I know a lot of people say, walking in their shoes, but sometimes the best way to think about it is not necessarily the situation that they're in, but the emotion they're feeling. Maybe you have a good friend that's grieving and feeling grief because they lost a family pet or they had to put their pet dog to sleep. And they're grieving that because that dog was their family. Now, maybe you've never owned a pet in your life. You don't really have a connection to animals, or you've never had a dog. So, no, you've never been in that situation before, but you know what grief is because it's a human experience. Everyone's grieved something or someone at some point in their life. So you connect through the emotion, not necessarily the exact same situation that they're currently in, if that makes sense. And sometimes it's not about jumping in and telling your side of the story too. Sometimes it's just listening and offering a space to someone. And instead of jumping in with advice, saying, that sounds really hard, tell me more. I can't tell you how much I've had to do this in my career as a leader with people that report up to me. If I can tell and sense that somebody feels off or is looking a little bit down, I always offer them the space to let me know what's going on. Like, hey, is everything okay? Is there anything I can do to support you? And then they open up maybe something that's going on in their professional or even personal life. And I give them that space and I'm like, I understand that sounds very tough for you right now. Is there anything else I can do for you to support you during this time? Do you want to talk more and tell me more about it? And the amount of times that somebody's just opened up and then felt better afterwards is astounding. But that's what empathy is about, right? It's about fostering connection with others and understanding where they're coming from. So a few ways to practice social awareness. One thing that you can do is paraphrase what somebody's saying before replying to them. This is coming from personal experience. So say you've been leaving the dishes pile up in the sink at home and your significant other is frustrated and they come to you and say, listen, you not cleaning the dishes and leaving them for me to clean is making me feel frustrated. You can reply, so you're saying that by me not cleaning up dishes after I eat and just leaving them there in the sink, it's making you feel frustrated. That's an example. And that comes from a real life experience, but not with me, the other way around, because that's something that Ben has a tendency to do as well. And I've had to have those conversations, but thankfully, because he also has high EQ, we're able to have these conversations without, it turning into an explosion most of the time. Also, start paying attention to nonverbal cues. So body language, facial expressions, the tone of somebody's voice when they're speaking to you. Sometimes what's unsaid is louder than what's being said. And again, we are not mind readers. This is not an exercise so that you can assume, oh, this person hates me because they look uncomfortable. Their body language seems tense when they're talking to me. No, you can tell that they're uncomfortable, but you don't know the why behind it unless they tell you. It's about understanding based off of their body language if someone is happy, if they're upset, if they're frustrated, if they look anxious, so that you can lean in and support and offer to be there for them. And then it also helps you tailor your conversation so that you're not being abrasive or loud or pushy if somebody seems like they're feeling down or frustrated or upset. Fourth pillar, relationship management or social management. This is about using awareness of your own and other people's emotions to build healthy connections. So taking it a step further from understanding and empathizing with other people's emotions, this is where you put it in action. This is what makes the difference in my experience in the corporate world from somebody who is just your boss and who tells you what to do and an actual leader who inspires you. This is how partners communicate without it constantly spiraling into an argument or an explosion. And this is how friendships grow stronger. It's the ultimate EQ skill that elevates all of your relationships in your life. And this is where all of the other pillars come together in EQ. So this is especially helpful. Like if you're in a conflict, like raise your hand if you're uncomfortable with conflict resolution and you shy away from them. That used to be me. I used to be so uncomfortable voicing my opinion or having tough conversations with people because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how I would manage somebody else's emotions in that situation, which is why EQ has been so important for me in my relationships, because it's enabled me to have difficult conversations or voice an opinion to somebody without being hurtful, and also giving them the space to share their side of the situation as well. Like I have gotten so good at this that sometimes I can read my friends' emotions through their texts, because people have a certain way that they talk and write through text. And if I just see a few sentences that seem off, I'm like, hey, is everything okay? And they're like, whoa, how did you know something was off with me? And I'm there, I'm like, if you're open and if you need somebody to talk to, I'm here. And they usually take me up on that offer. But it's also helped me when I've had to give like critical feedback to somebody at work, and I had to be honest, but also show patience to somebody on my team and say, hey, I think you've been doing a great job, and I know you have a lot on your plate, but I've noticed that this keeps happening, this one thing. And because of this, it can impact our results and our profit. So is there something that I can help you with? Do you need any support? Are you like, is there any way that I can help out and understand your side? And the person was just honest with me and said that they were having a hard time staying organized and prioritizing their work. And we talked about it. I gave him some solutions and we talked through them. And then within the next couple of months, it was no longer an issue. The way that you approach conflict is so important. And if you approach it without stepping back and reeling in your own emotions and thinking before reacting, sometimes the conflict can end up getting even worse. Let's be real. I'm sure you guys have been there. I have. One exercise that you can doing to practice this is using I statements in situations. So I feel like this when this happens, instead of saying something accusatory like, you always leave the dishes there. You never put this stuff away and it's pissing me off. You see how it's different? Obviously, depending on the person, the way they react is not your responsibility, especially if you're delivering it in a manner that does encompass emotional intelligence. But it can help the discussion when you approach that type of conversation from your perspective and say, I feel, instead of being accusatory. And also just do regular check-ins with people. Like, how are you doing? Are you okay? And then they're like, you know what, Natassia, I'm not. And then they just list out a whole long list of all of these crazy things that have happened that they're dealing with. And I'm just sitting there, oh, that explains so much. Now I understand. So do regular check-ins with people you work with, your friendships and family, your romantic relationships, and just have those conversations. So how do you know if you're emotionally intelligent? Let's break it down. Signs that you have a high EQ. You pause before reacting. You can actually articulate the emotion you're feeling and the why behind it. You notice other people's moods, even subtle shifts in tone or body language. You make an effort to understand other people's viewpoints. You avoid judging others, even if you disagree with them, and you're able to avoid conflict without ghosting or exploding. Now, on the flip side, signs that you may have low EQ, mood swings, run your life. You avoid tough conversations because they make you feel uncomfortable. You struggle to admit when you're wrong. You hold grudges and replay situations in your head. You have a hard time letting go of mistakes, not only your own, but other people as well. You find yourself feeling misunderstood, like people don't really get you, and you blame others for how they make you feel. And that last one is actually really interesting. And when I've told people this, sometimes they're like, what? But it's true. Your emotions are yours, which means they're your responsibility. Yeah, somebody can say something rude or passive aggressive, and then you might get upset or angry, and that's your responsibility to deal with that emotion, not theirs. Obviously, that doesn't mean that, that passive aggressive comment was okay. No, it's not okay. And you have the right to feel angry. Anger is a normal human emotion. It's how we, one, react to it. What do we do with that anger? And also, are we holding on to it? Like, are we going to hold on to that anger for the entire day because of that one comment that somebody made? Because that is not good for our emotional well-being. So yeah, Susan may have said something rude to you, and that wasn't very nice, Susan. That wasn't cool. But now you're stuck there processing this emotion and feeling furious and not able to let go of it while Susan's just going about her day. Like, she's moved on. She's good. She's not even thinking about you anymore. And you're there letting that emotion just control you for the entire day. That's what that last point means. So your emotions are your responsibility, and managing them in the end are your responsibility. And if you find yourself nodding to several points on both of the lists for like high EQ and low EQ, that's totally normal. I can be in my low EQ days sometimes too. It's okay. We're not perfect. So EQ is something that you can learn and you can grow at and become better at. It's like strengthening a muscle, right? The more you practice and the more you work at it, the stronger it will get. And then the more of a habit it becomes, so it starts coming to you naturally. Like, a lot of aspects of the EQ did not come to me naturally. I felt like I've always been an empath and I've always been painfully self-aware, but I didn't know how to manage my emotions. Like, I knew what I was feeling and why, like the deep why behind it. Like, oh, I'm feeling unmotivated because this person said this comment to me, and I know why it's making me feel unmotivated because I'm insecure about this. And so that's what's triggering it, is because it's tied into this insecurity. Like, I was super self-aware. I just didn't know what to do with the emotion afterwards. I'm like, okay, so now what do I do with this? And I got better at it by practicing and becoming more aware of these different tools and practices that I could do to get better with self-regulation and self-management. So here's the big takeaway. Mastering emotions isn't about perfection. It's not about bottling up your emotions or being apathetic. You're supposed to feel all of the emotions. Anxiety is a normal human emotion. So is joy, anger, fear, excitement. All of those, we are meant to feel them. It's just, we have to let our feelings come and go and not let them overstay their welcome. It's all about practice. Start with self-awareness, build on that pillar, and then as you get more comfortable with it, then you can move on to the next pillar. Over time, you'll notice you're more calm, you're confident, and way less controlled by the emotions of others and your own emotions. Like, imagine being so emotionally confident that other people's drama doesn't drag you down anymore. You're just over here sipping your coffee in peace and not letting it bother you. That's how I feel now. That was definitely not me 10 years ago, so I am proof that it works. And if you enjoyed this video, I have another video that I talk about how to deal with friendship breakups without spiraling. I'll see you there.